she had been using, not sorry, had been using on a regular basis since the age of 12. Her addiction progressed to the point where she overdosed on heroin in May of 2015, resulting in her losing custody of her 3 children. Shortly after that, Ho-Chunk Nation Social Services presented Carrie with an opportunity to join their family wellness board. I will let Carrie share her personal journey through treatment and recovery and also tell us what she's been doing since obtaining her sobriety. And then last but not least, we have Echo Olson. Echo is a 2019 graduate of the St. Croix County Adult Drug Court. She was nominated by her treatment court coordinator, Kimberly Pittsburgher, in part because of all she's achieved, but also because she was a participant whose ultimate success in the program was derived from a non-traditional approach to the treatment court process. Echo faced a lot of hurdles in the recovery process, including living in a rural part of the country, hurdles in the lack of transportation, limited education, and a lack of work experience, combined with escaping an abusive marriage and trying to provide a safe, stable home environment for her daughter. The team recognized early on that Echo needed to be allowed the freedom to focus on building a new life of recovery through self-discovery and treatment first. Throughout the course of her treatment, she actively participated in intensive outpatient substance use disorder treatment, the matrix model, mental health treatment services, dialectical behavioral therapy, and moral recognition therapy. Echo will share her story of recovery and bring us up to date on what she is since graduation. So Clint, we'll start with you, and you can tell us your story and how you do that.
Yeah.
You don't know what?
So turn this back on. I did.
Somebody have a timer. Somebody raise their hand, something. They're known to be a long talker. I've been told that. What's that? Oh, my name is Clint. I'm a grateful recovery addict. 7.5 years sober. My sobriety date is September 9th. Excuse me, September 13th, 2013, Friday 13th. Sober. Thank God every day. I don't even know who that was. I'm a recovery coach. I'm a recovery coach because I really like to help people find out what I found out. I struggle with even who I struggle with who I was, and it wasn't who I was. And when I found recovery, I went back to the time when it all started at age 12 and 13 years old. Let's start there and go a little bit before that. So I think I was one of those people that was predisposed. I question all the time how, why. I do research. And my first drink was at the age of 9. My uncle gave me a shot of whiskey because I had a sore throat and he thought it would be entertaining. And I obsessed about that feeling from that day forward. My aunt recently pulled out a video of me at a wedding, probably at the age of 10 or 11, and she videotaped me drinking people's beers, sleeping beers off the table. I literally was obsessed with it. I was an oversensitive ADHD child, and in 8th grade, 7th and 8th grade, I was introduced to marijuana and Ritalin. And in 8th grade, I did cocaine for the first time. By the time my parents figured out what was going on, my freshman year of high school, I had already been a couple of years into addiction. Sorry, I should have prepared. It's my story. I didn't think I would need to. Yeah, high school was rough. I was, again, in conflict as as already as a teenager growing up and coping with substances, first of all, my frontal lobe never developed, and I learned this. Keep it right up there. Okay, sorry. Jeez. Too many things to think about. You know, all these people looking at me. So
Just turn around, face the other way.
I had 9 underage drinkings. I was caught with marijuana 4 times, 3 or more at school. My 9th underage arrest, so to say, my parents told them to take me to healthcare center. It was 2 months before my 18th birthday, and it was their last attempt to help me. And I went to Tomahawk Treatment Center back in the 80s. This was, or maybe early 90s, yeah. And I spent 30 days in treatment, and I learned a lot about myself. I learned about who I was, and it was definitely it definitely helped me. I was released a couple days before Christmas, my senior year of high school, and I relapsed on spring break that year, and that's when I met my future wife on relapse, who then I got pregnant 6 months after that. I'm a mixed bag of extremes. I even describe, that's how I describe myself on the dating sites now. It's either over here or over there. So I always wanted to be a father. I always wanted to be successful in a career. I didn't grow up with trauma. I had loving parents. I wasn't abused. Some of the things that people go through, I don't know if I could have gotten through it. I think I would have. I wouldn't have gotten through it. But I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to deal with myself. So after my relapse and after having a baby, I had one run with cocaine for about 90 days, and my ex-wife, my wife at the time, gave me an ultimatum. She didn't know what was going on, but said, if it doesn't stop, I'm going to New Mexico with the baby. So I wanted both. I wanted both lives, and I lived both lives. I got found OWI court because I got 5 OWIs. My first and my second, I think the first one I blew a .28. My second was a .36. My third one was only a .06. My my fourth one, I wrapped a car around a tree and was in a coma for 6 days with a broken neck and blood on the brain. And then I finally quit drinking, but I never found recovery. Throughout those years of my adulthood, I used marijuana 3 days on, 3 days off. That was my sobriety. Drinking on the weekends, that was my sobriety, and I managed to do things in my career. I managed to take care of my kids. The legal troubles here and there, problems with my wife, and the things that come along with it. But I did manage to maintain or function. Every few years, something bad would happen, and I would start smoking crack. So here I was, a business professional. I was a recruiter. I was a banking recruiter, a technology recruiter. One day, and then in the shadows, I was smoking crackers, snorting coke, or whatever it is. I started abusing Adderall when I was 34, and I broke my contract for the second time and lost that in 2000. Who even knows? I was 38 years old, and I started using methamphetamines. If I look back at every time that something bad happened in my life, or every time that I had a string of months on cocaine or crack cocaine, it coincided with something that I could not handle emotionally. My point is when people use a substance to maintain, like Suboxone or Adderall or weed, eventually something happens in their life because they never learned how to cope, really cope. Something happens that's no longer strong enough, and you have to elevate, you have to run way further. So my son left me when he was 13 because I recognized the things that he was doing were the things that I did when I was 13. And I started to put pressure on him about what he was doing. And he left me. And it devastated me. And I started doing more methamphetamines, and then I let somebody shoot me out. That was in January of 2013. Between January 2013 and September of 2013, when I got arrested, which is one of the best things that ever happened to me. Because over the years, I've always been able to recognize, probably a little too late, later than I should have, that I needed to quit whatever I was doing, smoking crack, doing cocaine, and I would correct it and go back to marijuana and drinking. Couldn't get off the meth. I felt like killing myself. First day off of the meth, you feel horrible. The second day, you feel worse. And then the third day, despite loving my children, loving my career, loving the sunshine, loving God, I wanted to put a bullet in my head. So I would shoot up again. And that's what these people are going through. I'm sure you all know the science behind it, all the research, what's happening in the brain. But that's where I was at. And I was arrested. In jail, Melanie Strand came to me and said she had treatment. And I thank God for that every day. Actually, it was exhausting doing what I was doing. Having kids, a career, balancing everything in life and drug addiction, alcohol addiction, it was literally exhausting. And I sat in jail and I made that decision that I was going to recover. But I'm grateful for the program because it took a team of people, literally. The people, and that's why I do what I do in recovery coaching, because it's such an opportunity, because it's not easy. And to have all of those resources to help us get through that is critical. I quit 1,000 times. Is my 8 minutes up?
Yes.
It is? How long have I been talking?
Your final thoughts.
My final thoughts. Thank you, all of you in this. I appreciate it, because it's hard for me to see the people that go through this program and don't use it for what it's for. And it's got to be the hardest thing in the world to watch this happen, watch people do this, because it's an opportunity to change your life, to change their life. And the people that don't do it, it's just frustrating. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for everything that you do.
I'm Echo, and I'm a grateful recovering addict alcoholic. I'm not going to go too much into my using log because I feel like a lot of it's just redundant. I was sexually assaulted or abused by a family member. There was a lot of physical and mental abuse growing up. I didn't know stability. Drinking and drugging were what I knew as normal. My first time in drug court, I don't even think I made it 4 months, but it planted the seed. But at that point in my life, I wasn't ready to face reality. It was scary to me to think about dealing with all that stuff without something to help me cope. But that's when a couple years later, when I had just come to the realization that if something didn't change, I was going to end up dead with a needle in my arm or in prison. And so my drug court, over the time of my drug court, it was really challenging. I struggled a lot. And there was so many times that I thought about, just giving up, but then I would get a sanction. And it would make me angry, but it would also give me the attitude of, you guys aren't going to stop me from graduating. I'm going to do this. And that attitude helped There was a long time though in my drug court that I was like, well, when I'm done, I'll smoke weed. And I'm grateful that that mindset changed. I'm grateful that I was able to, through my recovery family, come to the realization that it would have just led back to the same thing. My recovery is my life. I have such a large recovery community and multiple different communities. There's been a lot of people who have reached out to me. I don't think that drug court teams, all of you guys out there, I don't think you guys get enough gratitude and enough recognition for the lives that you do save. And for me now, it's important just to carry on that message of hope and to participate in any way, shape, or form that I can help. That's it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Toro. I'm a recovering addict. I do want to share a little bit about my story and how it was growing up for me. I have something here that I wrote up for today, so I ask that you would all bear with me. I grew up as the youngest of my mother's 4 children. Throughout me and my siblings' lives, my mom had raised us on her own. My dad is a Vietnam War veteran who has always struggled with alcohol use and PTSD. The combination of both had led him to many drinking and driving incidents, which resulted in many stints in prison before and while I was growing up. As a young child, I didn't understand addiction. At times, I wondered why I wasn't worthy of my dad being able to quit drinking. Looking back now, there were times I felt abandoned by him. This would affect me in my teenage and adult years to feel anger and resentment towards him. The downfall is that I wouldn't have the tools to express these feelings in a healthy way. As far as I can remember, my mom had worked to provide for us children. She has been in recovery for 32 years. I have been fortunate enough to never see her under the influence of any substance. Coming to my teenage years, I was given a lot of freedom. A lot of times I chose to hang out with my siblings and ones who were older than me. At that time, they were young and getting into drinking and smoking weed. I slowly made my way into doing the same. I had experimented at the age of 10 with drinking and smoking weed. By the time I was 12, I was smoking weed regularly. In hindsight, I had struggled with anxiety at a young age. It had been a way to relax my mind. Drinking followed in a couple years after. Little did I know that drinking to get drunk to the point of blacking out wasn't normal. This type of drinking behavior would last throughout my drinking days, which led to many legal consequences. Alcohol and marijuana use were always my go-to throughout my teenage years. I had known little about prescription medication until giving birth to my son. The doctor prescribed me Vicodin when leaving the hospital. I had taken them, but didn't take notice to the effects of the medication. A couple years later, we had our first daughter. Again, the doctor would prescribe me Vicodin for the pain after childbirth. This time when taking the medication, I noticed a feeling of motivation. I began to see how people could become addicted to taking them. Little did I know that I would become addicted to them too. The father of my children had already been experimenting and had knowledge of prescription medications. Relatives in our community had been selling the ones that they weren't using. It seems like these pills slowly made their way into our lives. I had enjoyed taking the pain medication as opposed to making a fool of myself while drinking. I also loved the motivation the pills gave me. My pain pill use continued on through my pregnancy with my 3rd child. I had been so scared and nervous that there would be something wrong with her, but I couldn't stop. After giving birth to a healthy baby, my use continued on. The cost of pills were going up and seemed harder to come by. Heroin had made its presence known. When and how that happened, I can't be too sure. The prices were low and the high was great. I had started snorting lines and had eventually started my IV use. This continued on for years, while also adding meth to my list of addictions. My life had become centered on my using, and it showed, to say the least. In May of 2015, I had overdosed and lost custody of my kids because of it. It was a huge loss, but that didn't make me stop using. I continued on throughout the summer, and when October came, I was presented an opportunity to join Family Wellness Court, and I was all for it. I continued to use until I decided I wanted to go to inpatient treatment in December that year. I believe that this is when my recovery journey began. I remember crying a lot while I was there. After so many years of use and having to sit with myself with hard some days, I had gone to a halfway house and had relapsed while I was there. The team let me come back, but I continued to use when I came home. The team decided to send me into another inpatient treatment again. I was upset and I really didn't want to go. The day the staff dropped me off at New Day Treatment Facility was April 18th of 2016. This is my sobriety date. I completed my 6 weeks there and was set up to go to a transitional living house. I stayed there another 6 weeks and was finally able to come home. This is when it was really time to put in the work with Family Wellness Court. Now that I had a good start on my recovery, I was able to meet the expectations that were set before me. It felt like things just started falling into place for me. I remember getting into the phase of Family Wellness Court where I could start work. I was having a session with my counselor and I was talking to him about how I started working. He asked, "Why don't you?" I kind of felt like it was a challenge. So in my head, I'm thinking, shoot, all right. I had a meeting with the Whole Chunk Nation's 477 program that same weekend to help me find work. I was hired for a job with the Whole Chunk Nation Department of Education before leaving the building that day. Until this day, I still work in the same department. The Family Wellness Court had held me accountable since the beginning of participation. They also stuck by me through the whole process. Not once did they give up on me. I will say that the team truly cares about its participants, even though it didn't feel that way sometimes. They have their participants' best interests in mind. They offered me resources upon resources. I was eventually able to get my driver's license, a vehicle, and a home for my little family. In August of 2017, I graduated from Family Wellness Court and was also given custody back of my children the same day. Since then, I've had another daughter who is now 2, and we recently added a family pet to our family. I'm currently a student at Western Technical College and enrolled in the accounting program. I will be receiving an associate degree upon completing my summer courses. I've also been able to help organize a local recovery group called Prosperity and Recovery. Our mission is to provide a safe environment to provide a purposeful, prosperous life and journey of ongoing purpose-driven recovery. Our mission is also to encourage greater focus and structure to those in recovery through fellowship-based activities. We recently started doing fundraising for our community events. I've also been provided with other recovery-related opportunities. I've recently taken the Certified Peer Specialist training, and I've been able to practice these skills at home. I would also like to put these skills to use with others in my family and community members. If you would have asked me in the beginning of my recovery if I thought I'd be giving a speech at a conference, I would have told you no. I also want to give a special thanks to the father of my children. He recently passed away in early December of 2020. And I also wanted to give thanks to my children and to my family for all their support. And I also want to take the time to thank the Family Wellness Court team. They were a really big support and they never gave up on me. And then I also wanted to give a thanks to WATCP. Thank you. We do have a few more minutes available for questions. has questions for you on that.
I just was curious what you thought was the most beneficial part of being in a treatment court program.
For me, it was the accountability, and also it made a big difference once I realized that these people that didn't know me cared about me and wanted to see me succeed.
I have to agree with Echo. I believe it is the wellness, the treatment court team holding you accountable for things that might not be in your best interest. And I know I heard Echo say in her story that, you know, it kind of would upset her. And that's when something would happen with me, that's the way that I would feel too. But it really causes you to take a look at the choices that you're making. And you've been in that mind frame for so long that, you know, you don't like being told what to do anyway, you know. But I would have to say that accountability. And then when we would meet with my team, I thought it was kind of nice that they would, at the end of their meeting, that they have these yellow cards and they would tell you something positive, you know, that you completed since the last time that they seen you. And no matter how small of a thing it was, you know, it was kind of like acknowledging the good things that you do. So that was nice as well.
I would definitely agree that accountability is there, but what I needed was a roadmap. I needed structure. From when I was from a very young age, I did what I wanted, and I had a career that allowed me to do what I wanted, and it went to my head. And my higher power, I shouldn't say it, but my higher power, when they told me I needed to find one, was shut the F up and do what you're told. And that literally was my mantra, because and that's what I did. I needed the structure, I needed the roadmap, and I appreciated that guidance. And I didn't always agree. Just shut the F up and do what you're told.
You can hold it.
We have a couple of questions from our virtual friends. What is one thing professionals can do to encourage hope?
Ooh. Can you repeat it?
What is one thing professionals can do to encourage hope?
Oh. I honestly think for me, was when I had my second interview to do drug court again and getting that second chance. It's so important for somebody who's so beaten and broken to have somebody see at least that tiny glimmer of hope and want to help add fire, so to speak, to that hope versus, you know, we're already so broken by the time we make it to interview for drug court that it is just being uplifting and supportive. And there was a lot of times through my drug court that I reached out to the coordinator or probation when I was struggling. And even since I've been off probation, there's been a couple times that I've reached out to probation just because it's still a safety net for me to be able to connect and just thought process.
I think finding the early on and often finding the blessings of recovery and celebrating them, helping, you know, addicts are so short term. Everything is now. So recognizing the little victories right away and pointing them out. But then even prior to that, putting them on a path that they can discover those, finding a job, paying something off, just the little things helps them, help me and the people that I work with realize that quickly that, oh, if I do the right thing, the right things happen. And then that gives hope, because then that makes the bigger picture easier to see when you can see the little victories.
Was there anything that would have been helpful for the transition for life after treatment or the post-graduation? What would have helped you, if anything, prepare for that? We have a couple minutes.
Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. Was there anything that would have been helpful for the transition for life after treatment or the post-graduation?
I was pretty prepared. And I see a lot of people, that's the point of it. I struggle with the drug court program with people graduating on Suboxone or Vyvanse. I don't believe that's the preparation. I'm just gonna make that comment. I think it has its place and it should be, but you have 15 months to teach somebody how to live life without drugs. And I played that game. I was shooting Suboxone with my methamphetamine. I was shooting 8 milligrams before I went to jail, before I started the program. And I see it, and I know what they do with Suboxone, and I know why they take it, and methadone and all that. I just don't understand why they would graduate from that program. I understand there's extreme cases, and I understand harm reduction. You have 15 months to teach somebody how to live without drugs, cope with life on life's terms, and I'm grateful to be clean, 100%.
I agree with your
The
response.
occasional bowl of ice cream.
I'm not sure that it would really be put on the treatment court's, responsibilities for after post-graduation, but I know that, after I was done, I continued with, my mental health and substance use counseling. And I have found that very helpful. I did stop for a while, but I am currently, doing that again, just to, work through some of the stuff that I, go through, but that was very helpful to me after I graduated.
One more promise. You guys are doing great. Do you think having peer specialists involved in treatment courts would be helpful? And if so, why?
I also did the training, and just by the statistics, I say yes, it would be beneficial. In my opinion, though, I honestly feel like there's gotta be a pretty black and white contract between the treatment court and the peer specialist, because I just feel like there's a lot of loopholes that the peer specialist can essentially get around, if that makes sense. And I agree with a lot of the peer support training, but there's a lot of it I did not agree with.
I believe it's important to have peer specialists and partner coaches involved. We can say things that you can't say. We can say whatever we want. And we do. As long as they're following the ethical guidelines, they have the best interest of the person in mind. But we have experience that you guys don't have. Maybe some of it you have, but to walk through that, and that's why I do what I do, because I want them to know what I know, feel what I feel. And if unless a counselor or administrator, somebody in a position hasn't been through it, they don't know what it feels like to be controlled so much, to have a violent substance and then to walk through the fire to get out of it. So I think it's important.
definitely think that it would be important to include the peer specialist if possible. Going into treatment court, you have an idea of what you think it's going to be like, but you really don't know, and to have that support. Obviously, they're not going to have the same exact experience that you have, but just knowing what to expect a little bit, because sometimes going through that can be a little scary. You know, it's a new experience. So I think that it would be very helpful, beneficial.
Thank you, graduates, for being willing to come and share your stories with us today. Again, like I said earlier, this is why we do what we do. We're grateful for you and keep doing what we do. You're amazing.
Thank you. We're gonna take a short break.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna take a short break in order to get set up with our next presentation. That's scheduled for 1:30. But be back here probably at 1:30 so we can get going on using data and standards to improve equity and inclusion in Wisconsin treatment courts. Please visit the vendors next door. As a matter of fact, when we actually get to the snack break, not now, but later, you're gonna be forced to, because that's where the snacks are, so.
Thank